My judgment wasn't broken. My follow through was the issue. My boyfriends knew that, oh, she's just going to fuss and then, oh, please, she'll give in. I became a doormat. My head was on straight. My confidence wasn't. I've ignored red flags, smelled the smoke, and still walked right into the fire. If you've done the same, you're in the right place. Let's get started. People think that healthy boundaries are walls, but I don't. I think healthy boundaries have holes, big enough to let the right people in, but small enough to keep the wrong people out. For years, I misunderstood boundaries. I thought having firm boundaries meant I was being cold, unforgiving, or unwilling to give people a chance. Looking back, I thought that I was giving people another chance that they deserved. I was trying to help them become someone that they actually needed to attempt to choose to become themselves. That sounds compassionate, but it was definitely not healthy. But here's what surprised me after therapy. I actually did have boundaries. When I started therapy, I thought maybe I'm just boundaryless. Maybe that's what's going on in here, and choices that I'd made in my life. People who cared about me definitely thought I didn't have any boundaries. They thought I was just, the store was open and everybody come on in, take what you want. I just feel sorry for everybody. There's no boundaries here. That's how it seemed. But I actually did have boundaries because I knew when something felt wrong. I did recognize red flags. I would speak up. I would give people a piece of my mind. I would absolutely confront foolishness and nonsense. And I was not afraid of conflict. That's something I've learned more recently. I'm not conflict adverse. I don't enjoy conflict, but if there's something that needs to be confronted, I am more than willing to do so, because I would rather confront a conflict and resolve it than to act like it doesn't exist. So in therapy, I learned that the problem was I kept moving the boundary. Remember that Jamiroquai video and the walls that was me, honey. They were just moving in and out, back and forth, up and down. They would go in circles sometimes. It was bad. I didn't keep moving the boundaries because I was weak overall, but I was definitely weak in certain areas, which again was hard to accept as a strong, bold person. But the truth is I was weak in certain areas. I would feel sorry for people. Man, my empathy would get the better of me. I would feel sorry for someone. I would see their potential, and I thought, if only I just give them another chance, they'll reach that potential. I understood their pain as, like I said, a very empathic person. I wanted to help them. I wanted to prevent regret for them, because at this point in my life, I was living with regrets having to do around that breakup. I didn't want anybody else to feel what I was feeling. Like I said, I was the queen of second chances. They just forgot to give me my crown. You know, they have these pageants. There should have been a pageant for the queen of second chances. I'm telling you, I would have gotten that award. I would have had a crown. They would have been singing the song. You know, they would have had celebrity come on and hand me a trophy, honey. I was confusing compassion with responsibility. I didn't realize that you can help somebody to a fault. People have to want to help themselves. They have to have some oomph, some drive in them. Helping is you're stepping in and helping somebody in the process. When you have a boundaries problem, you're just dragging people all around. So every time that somebody would cross my boundaries, I would confront it, but I would find a way to explain it away. Just always feeling sorry for someone. In my relationships, I would think about their childhood, especially one of my boyfriends. Honey, he had a terrible childhood. So I would be thinking about his childhood and what he had been through. I've always loved children. So I'm there thinking, oh, poor little such and such. Totally disregarding this was a grown man standing in front of me. I'm thinking about him as a 4-year-old. I had a boyfriend who lost a parent. I would just be so caught up in feeling sorry for him. I would feel bad for them that they had insecurities that I didn't have. I would say, oh, well, maybe they didn't mean it like that. Let me just give them another chance, give them an opportunity to correct it. I would make excuses for them if they had emotional challenges like depression or anxiety. There I went with my excuses. Now, like I said, I would confront it, But at the end of the day, when it came time to hold the boundary, to hold the line, that's when I would give in. So my compassion wasn't the problem. It was that my compassion didn't have any boundaries. Discernment without confidence, it doesn't change anything. Looking back, I can see something that took years to truly understand. My discernment was working. Like I said, my boundaries were intact. They just weren't firm. And what's the point of that if you have a boundary that you can just pick it up and move it? What kind of boundary is that? What kind of fence is that? What kind of gate is that? That's not a true gate. That's temporary. So my discernment was working. My intuition, honey. I learned through Susan, she had me do the personality test for Myers-Briggs. I learned that I'm an INFJ, and I'll get into that. But long story short, INFJs are extremely rare. We are extremely intuitive. My brain works in patterns. I see patterns a mile away. So my intuition was intact, fully intact. My judgment wasn't broken. My follow-through is what was the issue. My boyfriends knew that, oh, she's just going to fuss, and then, oh, please, she'll give in. She'll give in. I became a doormat. My head was on straight. It's that my confidence wasn't. Discernment tells you where boundaries belong, but confidence is what gives you the courage to keep it there. I had to realize that boundaries need a consequence. I thought that communicating a boundary alone was enough. I would explain, Lord, honey, I'd be in there explaining. It's like I wanted to roll out a whiteboard and have one of those sticks the teachers used to have back in the day and just wave it all around, giving bullet points. Oh, I would be explaining. Oh, my boyfriends would always feel like they were getting some type of a lecture because I would just go in. I would argue. I would absolutely argue. I didn't just back down. I would argue, and then I would, what? I would get my stick out and I would explain again. Here we go from the top. From the top. They would apologize to me a lot of the time. And I would say, oh, but he's sorry. He said he was sorry. He's sorry. I'll just give him another chance. That'll fix it. There we go. So then nothing would change. It was just this dance. I'd explain. We'd argue. I'd explain again. They'd apologize. And here we go back to round one again. A boundary without a consequence is just a suggestion. It's like you're just dropping it in the suggestion box. Nobody's going to go for that. Nobody's going to believe you. No one is going to take you seriously if your boundaries are just a suggestion. Oh, I have a story. I have lots of stories, but here is an example of the kind of foolishness. So one of my boyfriends had a lot of problems and he would not keep a job. Don't judge me. Okay, don't judge me. This was the first time and the last that I was dealing with an individual who would not keep a job, but he had a lot of problems. Here I go. But he had a lot of problems. I would explain, I would argue, I was upset about it, but I knew he had significant issues. So that's why he would get away with it to a certain extent, because he would get a job and then he would somehow lose the job, whatever. So he was financially abusive. He would call me while I was at work, demanding $20 here, $20 there. And he started to up the ante the more I got wiser and fed up. He would tell me things like he would open the door to the house and let my dog run out. I live next to a busy street. Somehow, I don't remember what happened, but he ended up figuring out where I worked. He would even show up there wanting money. It was crazy. Yes, I would argue. Yes, I would get upset. But I didn't hold the line. I did not hold the line. Another one of my boyfriends, this was before this situation. Oh, Lord, he had a sister. Then I saw a picture of this girl. Where they do that at? Okay, is what I was thinking. Where they do that at? Or does she have a different father? Because he was white and she was Hispanic. So again, discernment came up, boundaries come up, but I wouldn't enforce them. So he went on to explain, and when I look back, he would give parts of the story little bit by little bit when he was confronted. He knew what he was doing. That girl became a problem in our relationship and led to the breakup. He would spend what an older friend of mine would say, quality time with her, one-on-one time. She didn't have a car. He would do things like we'd be hanging out and he would say, well, what time are you planning to leave today? I said, well, I don't know. I'm just here hanging out with you. Oh, well, can you leave by such and such a time? And I said, I guess I can. Oh, okay, because such and such needs a ride to the store. Honey. So I was upset. I didn't like it, but I wouldn't put my foot down and say, that's it. If you're going to keep this up, we're done. Because all the traumas would come up. All the fears would come up. That was a problem, that girl. When I saw the picture of her, that's when he said, oh, well, she's not really my sister. We went to high school together. And when I lost my mom, she was the one who was really there for me. Other people said they'd be there for me, but she was the one who was actually there for me. So, okay, is what I was thinking. Empath came in. They were too close. And she had a boyfriend. I met the boyfriend, but it was when they would spend quality time together that it made me very uncomfortable. And I would tell him, and then we would end up arguing. My boundaries were absolutely violated. I was the girl before that would say, oh, I don't understand why people have a problem with their significant other having a friend of the opposite sex. Well, that's not me anymore, honey. Any situation that puts you in a position to be questioning, that's a violation of a boundary, in my opinion. But I would just keep letting it slide. And like I said, we would argue, I would explain, and then we would just go back to the status quo until those boundaries would get violated again. And like I said, it ended up leading to our breakup. I used to think that boundaries would end a relationship, but now I believe that weak boundaries destroy relationships. Your resentment grows. You end up losing sleep over it. That whole situation with that girl, I don't remember all the details because this was a long time ago, but I definitely remember there were times that he would have her over to the house and other buddies of his, but I'm not there. You know, talk about feeling resentment, but also you're not at peace. Boundaries are there for a reason, for your own protection. And when your boundaries are weak, the respect disappears. The same arguments repeat over and over again. And eventually someone ends up walking away. In my experience, because I wouldn't keep a firm boundary, my boyfriends would be the one to walk away because they got tired of arguing. They felt that I was difficult. Honey. Ooh. So firm boundaries don't push healthy people away. They reveal unhealthy patterns sooner. In closing, the kindest thing that you can do is to not rescue people from every consequence. It isn't giving endless chances. It isn't managing someone else's growth. Sometimes the kindest thing that you can do is step back and hold the line. Let them sit in their poop hamper. Let them experience the consequences that they have created for themselves and trust God with the outcome. So this is why I don't believe that healthy boundaries are walls. I think that they have holes big enough to let the right people in and small enough to keep the wrong people out. If today's episode encouraged you, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.